Alright, back to another album review. Today's review is on Ohms from Deftones. It's the ninth studio album from Deftones, and it's the first time since the unreleased album Eros, in which Deftones worked with our good friend Terry D, who also did the mixing and additioning to helping to produce this album. In fact, Terry D is the producer that Deftones worked with the most amount of time, since he produced 5 out of the 9 studio albums that Deftones have made so far. This album was recorded between 2019 and 2020 at Henson in Hollywood and Trainwreck in Seattle. It was released on September 25th, 2020 under Reprise. At the time of me making this review, this is currently the most recent album that Deftones have made. It's also the first Deftones album where Stephen Carpenter will be rocking a 9-string guitar, as you can see on screen. To be specific, this is an ESP 9-string from Japan that he bought. Okay. You can see him playing this same guitar in the music video for the song Ohms. We'll get to that later. I think the reason why Steven bought that 9-string is to make the music sound heavier. The guitar sounds fucking awesome if you ever heard it. Also, the only way that guitar would sound heavier would be to play an H flat. Anyways, this album is mainly centered around alternative metal. Though Deftones did make a return to shoegazing this time around, even touched upon dream pop and hard rock. I read that Classic Rock magazine described this album as, quote, dream pop with a metallic edge. And it's a very accurate description if you ask me. Now let's talk about the cover. The cover was designed by Frank Maddox, who had been working with Deftones since White Pony, which I reviewed a couple months ago. You notice that there are 12,995 dots on the cover. Before the album was released, Deftones ran the Adopt a Dot campaign, where people could purchase one of the dots as their own. A photo of the purchaser would appear on their dot as part of the Ohms Adopt a Dot digital experience, which can be viewed online. All the proceeds went to the UC Davis Children's Hospital and the Crew Nation Relief Fund, so it's great to know that the money went to a good cause. You also notice that there's a pair of eyes near the top. Many fans speculated that this was meant to be a tribute to Deftones' original bassist, Chi Chang, who sadly passed away in 2013. Now, Abe Cunningham stated in an interview that this was a coincidence. He also mentioned that the cover reminded him of the music video for the song When Doves Cry by Prince. Now, in order to promote this album, Deftones began teasing this album's release with a social media campaign in August 2020. Now, they were going to go on tour in North America with Gojira and Poppy between July and September of 2020, but the tour was postponed because of the pandemic. Now, let's talk about the songs. This album starts with Genesis, which was released as a single on September 18th, 2020. In fact, this is actually the second single from this album. Starts out soft with Frank Delgado on his keyboard for the band go full force. It even has a very heavy guitar riff from Stephen Carpenter. Remember, Loudwire described the song as being heavy as fuck, as well as one of the heaviest songs from Deftones, and I agree. There's a music video that was made for this song, and there's going to be a link to it in the description. The video does show Steven with a 9-string guitar that was different from the one that was in the photo shown earlier. And when your album starts with a song this heavy, you know you're in something special. The only way to make it heavier would be to play an H flat. This is one of my favorite Deftones songs, and we're only getting started. The next song is called Ceremony, which was released as a single on January 26, 2021. This is an alright song and fits within the overall tone of the album. Up next is Arantia. It's another really good song. It starts with a heavy guitar riff from Steven. And you can thank him for buying that 9-string when he did. And we follow that up with Error. The song shows some elements of shoegazing despite how fucking heavy it is. Again, there are some elements of hard rock. It's followed up by The Spell of Mathematics. Just like the Rantia, it starts with a heavy guitar riff. However, it makes a transition to shoegazing about 30 seconds in. Towards the end is when Zach Hill snaps his fingers. Of course, Zach Hill played the drums, piano, bass drum, and xylophone for Team Sleep's self-titled debut album, which I reviewed a while back. It's interesting how Team Sleep's debut album came out 15 years before this album. Now, the next song is called Pompeji. The song in particular is centered around dream pop. However, this isn't Chino Marino's first time going to dream pop, because Deftones have gone there in the past. Then again, the self-titled debut album from Ohms also touches upon dream pop. And we followed up with This Link Is Dead. The song starts off with Frank on his keyboard for the rest of the band go full force. I'd say this is one of the heavier songs on this album, despite the fact that it focused on the album's alternative metal elements. The song's tone also fits within that of this album. Up next is Radiant City, which also has some elements of alternative metal while simultaneously touching upon shoegazing with some dream pop elements. The next song is called Headless. It's actually one of the more popular songs, considering the fact that it touches upon dream pop. This album ends with Ohms, which was released as a single on August 21st, 2020. In fact, this was the first single from this album, despite the fact that Terry Date didn't think that the song should have served as the album's promotional track, but Deftones still used it as such. Of course, this song shares the same name as the album. There was a music video that was made for the song that was directed by Raffatoon, and there's going to be a link in the description. It also shows Stephen Carpenter rocking that ESP 9-string. As listening to this song gives you the feel of how heavy it is. From what I read is that this album peaked at number 5 on the Billboard 200, as well as number 1 on the top hard rock albums, and number 2 on the top rock albums. This album was met with very high praise from critics, and rightfully so, since it has an 87 on Metacritic. As for my opinion on it, I think this is one of the best albums from Deftones. If you've seen my video on the top 8 best albums of 2020, you remember that I placed this album as number 2, just behind Gigaton from Pearl Jam. I'd go as far as call this my second favorite Deftones album, just behind Diamond Eyes. And I think it's great that Deftones ended up working with Terry Date for the first time in over a decade when making this album. It's also the heaviest album that Deftones have ever made, since Steven ended up buying that ESP 9-string. Don't be surprised if he buys a 10-string in the near future. If he does, then the music will definitely sound heavy as shit. Granted, Steven said some controversial shit in December of 2020 when he was on a podcast, but let's not get into that. Anyways, I highly recommend this album. Now's the part where I question you. Have you listened to Ohms? If so, what are your thoughts on it? What's your favorite song on it? Do you think it was a good decision to work with Terry Date this time around? Do you think Stephen Carpenter will buy a 10-string guitar someday? Now let me know in the comments. If you like the video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to hit the notification bell to notify of future uploads. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon with another review.